We can do it.
Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan. And if you were just having trouble with Facebook, it's fixed now. I can't believe it. Thanks, Facebook. What a pain in the neck, right?
I know.
Anyway, we're glad that you were able to get on. CW's Book World.
CW's
Howdy, Rob and Joan.
Book World.
Howdy, CW.
That's a nice title. He's over there in YouTube land.
And here's Chris Chrisman.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Rob and Joan.
Good to see you.
Hi, Chris. And we're glad that you made it too. Joy York. Hi, all. Hi, Joy. We're glad that you're on. Joe Conjal. Hi, Rob and Joan. Yes, it took a minute. Yeah, we had to come out and go back in order for it to work. So
The miracles of technology.
yeah.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Okay, well, there's the routine stuff while we're waiting for people to check in.
Chris Chrisman says, I'm on my dang cell phone.
Grr.
Oh, plug it in. It's going to be a long show. Marjorie Deering says, Wednesday again. Hello. Hey, Marjorie.
Hey, Marjorie.
We're glad you're here. So glad you could make it today.
Reminding everybody about Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, www.wdjy.com, 99.1 FM in Atlanta. Tune in and you can hear our show there. Saturdays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, episode rewind, of course, right where you're watching now. And
Paul Hollis says, happy 3 days after St. Patrick's.
hey, Paul. But who's counting?
Hi, Paul. Me, I'm counting the days
That's
till
right.
next St. Patrick's Day. No, I'm not.
Well, apparently you are. Okay. Next Wednesday, tune in, same time, same bat channel. We'll have authors Judith Shervin and James Sniechowski. They're psychological?
No.
Psychologist team and authors, and they're very interesting. They've got a lot to say.
And what's interesting is they're retired actors. They were actors first. She was on Star Trek. She was a nurse on Star Trek.
Yeah.
And
she was in quite a few things, actually.
and so was he.
Yeah, and so
and
was
then
he.
they got their degrees and
They got
masters and stuff in psychology, and now they help people as therapists.
Speaking of Hollywood
and helping people.
Yeah.
Don't forget that you want to put that up? It's right there. Okay. The San Leon Book Signing Blowout, Saturday, April 27th, 2024, noon till 4 p.m. at Pier 6 Seafood Restaurant. It's a beautiful restaurant. We've been there. We did a podcast from there. I hope you remember. DG, who is going to be on the show tonight, just signed up to be on it.
You might want to try the oysters.
Yeah. Each author should provide their own tent table and chairs. If you can't do that, go ahead and talk to George about it. Arrangements can be made. They're taking a $25 donation for to be used for advertising to promote it. And to sign up or ask questions. Now, do we have this right this time? Yeah, let me see if I can find it in the banners. Uh-oh. You don't have it?
No, I don't.
All right. It's MAYANARTINTL@yahoo.com. Meanwhile, you can make that up and we'll put it up.
Well, I can I?
You can.
Okay.
Well, you're the one that does that.
Oh, that's true.
And we're going to spell it right this time, George. MAYANARTINTL@yahoo.com. Or feel free to call 281. Okay.
You already cover all the details?
I did. $25 advertising, tent table chairs. Arrangements can be made.
281.
281-229-0775.
Yes, if somebody would do
And George
that in
would like
advance.
to, it would have been.
Do you have that right?
Looks
like it, right?
Yeah. So you can run that now.
There we go. This is really a quality program tonight.
Yeah. Thanks for all your help, Rob.
I was busy today. Thank you. Yes.
Oh, Joe Conjo said, I think they were on before and did a great
they
reading.
were almost 2 years.
Were.
It was about 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And they've got some new books and stuff. So they wanted to come on again. We said, sure. So they will be on. Anyway, I hope a lot of you can go and join into that fun book signing. I wish we could go, but we can't get out there. We've got a couple of trips already, and then
you're supposed to say, alas, we can't.
George, okay, finally. Yeah.
You made it.
Yay. You just missed the whole.
We just gave a
plug for your
blowout.
Your blowout.
And we had a blowout at the beginning of the show too.
I know, but we got it fixed.
Facebook. Jeez. Can't live with it. Can't live without it. Anyway,
so professional.
The only thing in the news, and then we'll get right to our guest, is the Magnolia Bluff Crime Chronicles book 22 is out and available.
Girlfriend Retreat.
By Linda Retreat. No, Linda Pirtle. Girlfriend Retreat, ... better than therapy. Yep. So you need to check that out on Amazon. You will not be disappointed, I'm sure.
Well, Chris Chrisman says he wished he lived closer. I wish that we could too. George said, "Oh, good. Did you get my previous message?" If it was about Facebook being out, no, because we just.
Well, I did answer him. I told him to try again.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Rob answered you and said, "Try again."
Anyway, I think Dell went home.
No, he didn't.
No? Oh, okay. He's probably getting bored back there.
Yeah.
So why don't we bring him on? Hello, Dell McCOOL. How are you doing?
Just fine, thank you.
Oh my gosh, Robert White. Morning, all. Good morning,
Good
Robert.
morning.
How are you doing? Good to see you.
Robert's in Australia.
In Australia.
He's time traveling ahead of us.
Very cool.
Yeah, I know. We love Robert. We're glad that you're here. All right, Dell. Was that fun sitting backstage and watching all the shenanigans that go on?
Hey, I love the green room. It was a lot of fun back there.
Oh, yeah. You like the food that we served back there?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You didn't drink the champagne, did you?
I didn't think that was champagne, so I didn't try it. Yeah.
Oh, good.
We saved that for after the show.
Okay.
It'll still be there. Don't worry. It might
right,
be a little flat. But...
Yeah. So how are you today?
Oh, fine. Doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, good. Who is Eric McCOOL?
That's
Is it
probably
his son?
It's a brother of mine.
Your brother.
Your brother.
He lives
Hello,
in
Eric.
he lives up in Missouri. Yeah.
Oh, we're glad that you could make the show, Eric. That's wonderful. Doing well, getting ready to head to rehab. Oh, you have rehab this morning? Robert had a leg amputated, and he got a what do you call it? Prosthetic. And so he's still going to rehab to get used to that. Marjorie Deering says, bring your own bottle or bring your own beer, whichever way you want to read that. But yes, it is. That's right, Marjorie.
And George is on board.
One
old tofu writer. One beautiful wife and 2 dogs of questionable worth and erratic bathroom habits. That's good to know.
Thanks.
Thanks, George.
Thanks for sharing. Joe Conchel says he ate only green M&Ms. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Chris says, keep healing, Robert.
Okay. Well, I think we've goofed the show up enough
Yes.
that now you can fix it for us.
We can get serious. Well,
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in writing?
All right. As far as myself, right now, I'm recently retired from a 9-to-5 job and 100% writing. I started writing back in a long time ago in elementary school, junior high, and high school, and then wrote my first draft book around 2010. And it's actually one of my published books now, Future Conquest. It's set on the shelf until 2022 and was cleaned up and then published. But I got serious about, as far as trying to get books published in 2020. And Future Conquest is the one that I wrote in 2010. And a good friend of mine, Stephen Meeks, helped me co-author that, and we got that one out. And it's kind of a space opera, and I think it was a lot of fun writing it, and I think it's a good read. In 2020, then I started getting into the mode to go ahead and write some science fiction. I enjoyed science fiction. Started one of the first books I ever read was called Vandals of the Void by Jack Vance. Not a lot of people have ever heard of it, but it's an excellent read when you're like junior high, high school age about space travel. And then from there, of course, into Foundation and all the Arthur C. Clarke and everybody else's books. I really enjoyed that part of the science fiction genre. And so that kind of helped me get there to where I just want to start writing some of my own, because I have a vivid imagination. And as you've learned from talking with me, I turn on the mouse and I don't turn it off unless somebody, reins me back. So if I get carried away, please rein me back in. But
we're supposed to do this, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right. The hook. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll be over here. But yeah. But anyway, and so then when I started getting a little more serious about actually getting to become a published writer, I wrote the first book, 2020, that was published in 2021. It had a different name at launch, but it's now Messenger Dreams, which is book 1 of the Dark World series. And so with it, there's 2 more published books out and a 4th book overall that will come out here in the next expected next couple months. And it's kind of a 4-book set right now. I don't know if there'll be anything beyond that unless the need dictates, if people want it. Yeah, that's book 3, Warriors of the Heavens and Earth, and book 2 is Ancient Ones Revealed. And so that 3-book series kind of takes people from the start of, I don't know if you want me to go into explaining that book now, or we want to talk about something else first.
You can explain if you want to. Let's see, we've got a comment. Let me see what we've got here. Oh, Joe Conjel said he loves the covers. Yeah. And did you see George Dismuke said hi, Doug?
That's Chris Chrisman.
I mean, Chris Chrisman said hi, Doug. I mean, George Dismuke said hello, Del.
Hello.
Yeah.
So yeah, the 3 covers, as you showed briefly, was the Messenger Dreams, Ancient Ones Revealed, and Warriors of the Heavens and Earth. And that series is called The Dark World. And in a nutshell, without going into too much detail, the series is based on a police officer who is a veteran. He's in Chicago. He becomes injured, and through that activity and some things that happened to him in Iraq, his third eye is awakened, and he starts to develop abilities beyond what you normally would think, where he has psychic abilities. He has astral projection. He has a lot of things. He looks at people and can see their aura, the color of their aura, and things like this, which initially help him as a crime fighter. And then the story really kind of takes off from there. And you have a person who is a government whistleblower who knew the government was covering up ancient aliens that we've known for years, and that the government was involved in working with reptilian aliens, and that there was a thing underfoot that was going to create a new world order with the reptilians in disguise of humans. And he tried to make this public, and he became a hunted and wanted man. So that's a different character, but it's all in this first book. So it kind of develops. You have a archaeologist who works in Samaria and finds a lot of ancient clay tablets that have a lot of things that he was able to translate that people hadn't before. And there's a person who's a ancient priest from Samaria who, through some events of magic and some artifacts, becomes immortal and lives through a set of events that bring you into modern times. And these four main characters are the backbone of the first book, and actually carry on through the whole series. So if you like ancient alien Sumerians, Anunnaki, reptilians, if you like things of this nature, that there's a government cover up and that we do know about aliens. If you there's a group called the True Dreamers, which is an ancient sect from the Sumerian days that's covert. It's actually tied into the Freemasons and more modern times. It piggybacks off of them. And so all of this is kind of some of the background for this whole story of the first book. And then the second book, Ancient One Revealed, gets more into the alien side. And the third book is more the confrontation between the humans and the aliens for control of the earth. So in a very high level, that's kind of what the three books are. But the first one has a little bit of the alien flavor and focuses a lot on the Sumerian and the special abilities of the character Dylan. And he has visions where he sees things, and he can actually meets and talks to angels and things like this. So that's
Chris Chrisman says, nice concept. And then he also said, those stories are right up my alley. I know they are, Chris. I knew you'd like it. And
right.
Joe Conjal says, hi, Del. Do you plot out your books ahead of time, or are you more of a pantser discovery writer?
All right. Briefly, what I do, okay, and this is the way I've done it since I've been writing. I actually I'm a kind of a hybrid where I actually will write both the prologue and the epilogue for the book that I'm writing. And I mean as much detail as I can write in both, how the book's going to start, how that book will end. And then I outline. So from that position, you could say I'm an outliner. But once I got those two completed, I do the pantser. I run from point A to B, and whatever it takes me to get there is what I do. And once I get to the epilogue, then I look back and see if it still makes sense. Does it need tweaking? Does the prologue need tweaking? So that's kind of how I do it. And then the other part, the mechanics of it, I can say real quickly. Then we won't have anything left for the rest of the show. But for but the mechanics of it, what I do is I'm one of these people that I visualize. I see my books like movies or TV shows. And I really do. And so what I do is I actually put on this headset. I open up Microsoft Word, and I do voice to text, and I close my eyes and I watch the movie, and I describe what I'm seeing in my mind onto the Microsoft Word. And now once I get that scene or that chapter or whatever, how long, I don't stop myself until I run out of gas, right? And at that point, I'll go back and I'll flip the script and use Microsoft Word to play text to audio. Then I catch the boo-boos where I used a wrong word that I didn't mean to use, or the computer typed the wrong word because it didn't understand me. And I do as much grammatical correction by listening to it, because you'll catch more mistakes that way. Once I have that, then I'll go in and I'll fill in the blanks in between these visions, these blurs, with what I think the storyline should be, and make it more whole. Once I get what I would consider a first draft completely done, then I'll go out and I have some people I use for editing, some people I use for my book covers, and I'll go to these people and have them edit. And then I've got a couple ARC readers that read my stuff that I'll take it to them. and try to get as clean as I possibly can before I self-publish, which is what I do.
Let me see. There's one more comment. So with all of that, how long does it take you to write a book?
Well, that first book, I wrote it in about 6 months, The Messenger Dreams. And I worked with a company, which I would never do again, who was going to help me get it published. And they literally took another 6 months with a manuscript in their hands. And it was, to me, it was taking too long. Since then, I do about 3 months is about an average for a book, from idea to getting it ready to go to print. That's about an average. Now I'm behind right now. I retired, like I said, and I think my brain thought I retired from writing. So I took some time off, about 6 months off, really, and did some smaller projects, which is some things we may talk about during the show. Some non science fiction books I wrote on the side, and but yeah, that's about normal for me, about 90 days, and it could be longer. And what I do also is I found that after I write, say, book 2 of a series, I have this habit of going back and editing book 1 again and adding more detail, and I rev all my books in the front. So if you bought book 2.0 and you look online and there's a book 2.2, that means Dell went back and added a few little hooks that are mentioned in book 2 or 3. I just do that. And so
Foreshadowing
yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah. And sometimes it just makes sense to do it because I see things, and it's not that the storyline changed drastically. I want to put more detail, so when they read it in the first book and they encounter it in the second and third book, it just seems natural. It doesn't seem that.
Speaking of adding,
sure,
we have some ads that we have to run right now.
Absolutely.
So everybody stay tuned when we come back. I think
back.
Del might be going to read some a little bit to you.
Yeah.
Sure. So hang on. Nobody go away.
Don't go away.
Got a lot to talk about.
It's every parent's worst nightmare. Police officer Madison Jackson awakes to discover her baby kidnapped from her crib. Was it revenge for someone she arrested, or something far more sinister? Madison's estranged husband is incarcerated in Supermax. As the second in command of a deadly Mexican cartel, did he issue the order to abduct their daughter? Bye, Baby, Bye, from author Kelly Marshall. Get your copy today.
Many secrets are hidden within the darkness of the jungle. Now comes part 4 in the Jaguar series by retired Hollywood scriptwriter George Dismukes. In this saga, Brandon, Andrea, and Naja, the Black Jaguar, go deep into the Mato Grosso jungle on a mission to rescue 2 kidnapped children. During their journey, they encounter many dangers, including Yanomami Indians, bent on revenge for the murder of one of their warriors.
Return of the Jaguar is book 4 in the Jaguar series, starting with 2 faces of the Jaguar, The Lost City, and the Jaguar's Quest. All 4 are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other bookseller websites worldwide. Return of the Jaguar is a must-read.
The clock is ticking. Can Gracie uncover the truth?
Philip Pliant is the wealthy opportunist plastics dealer and CEO of Pliant Industries. He's also a master thief, creating a pervasive threat to the manufacturing infrastructure in the Caribbean islands markets. With the cartel as his stealth client, the naive city leaders have been seduced, enabling the production of more than 3-dimensional building materials.
The expected profits are monstrous.
Is the art group, now led by Gracie and the family heirs, strong enough to win against this predator?
Can JJ's cats act on the root cause analysis in time?
Will Gracie be able to squash Pliant and the cartels?
Gracie never considered their lives would hang in the balance. The clock is ticking. 5, 4, 3.
For those of you that were just listening to that commercial on audio, that's from Enigma Factor by Brickfield and Berkey. You can find that on Amazon.
Sean O'Neill is watching, and he said,
Hey, Sean.
sounds familiar, the way I think we've he was talking about the way that you were writing. Hi, Sean. We're glad that you could make it into the audience today. That's fun. You all remember Sean? He was just on the show. I do too. I do too. All right.
All right.
Would you like to read an excerpt now?
Sure, I can do this.
Okay.
From book 1, The Messenger of Dreams. Let me just set a little bit of background real quick so it doesn't just spew words out of thin air. This character, Dylan Bryant, is the one who was the military person who was a police officer, was injured, and his third eye and abilities were awakened. And he starts to have visions while he's awake, just periodically. This particular one, he's just stopped for the night in a hotel, but he can't sleep, so he's laying in bed looking at the ceiling when suddenly the ceiling fades away. And then I'll start. Dylan looked straight into the night sky. All he could see was blackness, and then slowly stars faded in again. It all seemed surreal, as if he was floating in thin air while looking up into the sky. He then heard thousands of footsteps coming from below. He noticed he was floating above an ancient battlefield. Based on the armor and looking at the layout, it appeared to be pre-Sumerian. There were thousands of human troops marching towards an open field, and on the other side was what appeared to be a temple made of metal in the shape of a ziggurat, like he had seen the day before. He looked from his vantage point above, and he noticed a drawbridge lower from the side of the middle ziggurat and outboard hundreds of soldiers, seemingly unhuman from a distance. They appeared to be a tannish reptilian creature. As they ran towards the charging humans, they were outnumbered by the humans, hundreds to one. Before the battle began, the clear night sky filled with storm clouds, and Dylan could no longer see the stars. When he looked up, he could see the clouds were turning darker and starting to churn like a large storm amid lightning. The lightning went from white to bright red, and while the night sky glowed red. As Dylan looked back towards the ground, he noticed the creatures from the ziggurat were firing a red light beam from their weapon and killing the humans. Humans were fighting back with conventional weapons as the sheer force of their army was pushing these creatures backward. Suddenly, the ground beneath them erupted with a flame column that went straight into the air. Dylan saw the flame, and it began to turn until it became like lightning, tornado, and the fire in the sky. It touched the ground and went hundreds of feet in the air. Dylan was amazed as if he could feel the heat from the flames. Upon top of the tornado of fire, he saw there was a metal platform, and it was floating, and on this were figures that appeared to be giants. He made them out to be some sort of gods. These gods were waving weapons and yelling in a deep voice and crackled like thunder, speaking a language he'd never heard before. He watched the battle unfold as these gods fired lightning bolts and red beams of light down into the human hordes, but the significantly larger army of humans kept moving forward. One of the gods then raised his staff and yelled something in a very commanding voice. The massive fire suddenly changed its form and turned into the form of a giant dragon that swooped down from a tornado into the masses, and it killed hundreds of soldiers with each flying past. The platform itself continued to hover in the air. From their vantage point, the gods directed their army below against the humans. The source of the fire began to rumble as the ground began to split open. From the opening, steam poured out and out of the hole in the ground. Many humans fell into the pit, and Dylan could see their orbs floating back out of the chasm. The surviving human infantry moved around the hole and continued to advance towards the enemy, reaching the metal ziggurat temple setting on the desert floor. The inhuman army had now been pushed back to almost the very edge of the structure. Water and steam began to shoot up out of the ground. It was scalding, and it was pouring under the feet of the human troops. The retreating water then pulled them back down into the hole in the ground as more water then came back out. Dylan realized that everything was now shaking like an earthquake. As he could see everything around him heavily shaking, he looked back up into the sky, and the clouds were parting. He saw the floating platform was now moving away from the battle and heading toward a temple. Dylan felt a sense of terror when he looked above that and saw a giant black orb in the night sky. It appeared to be twice the size of the moon. The dark orb was getting closer and closer. It appeared to be some sort of an alien planet on a collision course with the Earth.
Well, that was scary.
Yeah, definitely.
I actually saw that like a movie in my head, and I wrote what I saw.
Yeah.
Now that's scary too.
I know. Unfortunately, I really do know. Anyway, that was really good. And that was from
Messenger Dreams, book 1.
The book 1. So he sees this whole battle,
Yes.
had a vision of it,
Yes.
and could see exactly what was happening.
Right.
Joe Conchel says, wow, great reading.
Thank you.
Yeah. Chris Chrisman says, well done. Yeah.
Some of the people were well done too. They were roasted.
They were freshly boiled. Yeah.
I know. If any of you know about any of the Sumerian texts or, the Anunnaki, it's all pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
CW says, fascinating how you can visualize everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that's great. George says, those reptilian creatures, were any of them named Deborah?
You'll have to read the book.
But probably.
There's a good possibility there's at least one Deborah in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or as they used to say back then, Deborah, right? Deborah. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I love it. We had some MUFON authors on, and we also had an abductee who had written books, and she had been abducted by reptilians. She said she'd been abducted by reptilians.
That's what she believes.
That's what she believes. Yeah. And some kind of blue cat people.
Well, in this series, as it goes along, you will have alien grays. You will have 2 forms of the reptilians, the green reptilian scaly and the more smooth tan-skinned reptoids. You have the Anunnaki, which is kind of who we were just describing on the platform. And without saying who they were, but they're and throughout the book it talks about them.
Yeah.
And so you have those key, and actually in chapter 1, this guy who's the military whistleblower, he actually gets abducted. That's why the cover shows somebody getting beamed up. He gets abducted by the grays, and but these grays, within this world, there's 2 sets of grays. The ones that are subservient to the reptilians, and there's another set that's working with the peacekeepers, and they're trying to protect humans from everyone else taking over the world, and making us all their slaves. And then there's a whole other set of things going on with the tablets that explains about things that we take for granted in our current world, where maybe the government and religion is really tweaked to keep the humans in line and under the control of the government and the aliens. And this tablets actually explain there's an alternative where you can actually be a free-willed person and not do what you were taught to do and raised to do. So that's kind of an underlying tone in book 1.
Scary stuff.
Yeah.
Joe Conchel said, being that you self-publish, what type of marketing do you do to promote your books?
Not enough. No, just kidding. Apparently, you could spend a lot of money and not see the good results, right? No, I do probably what a lot of people do. I initially, my first year, I went with everybody who said they would market anything for me. I paid them good money and didn't see very good results. And so since then, or I guess I should say, the results weren't very well, since I'm writing is supposed to speak correct, saying that I'm in Texas though, so I had to say it ain't no good. But anyway, right? But anyway, so yeah, what I do now is I will advertise on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and I will run the little campaigns and pay them their money to do ads for me, and I see mixed results. I've taken some of the classes from a couple of the famous authors. Published to Thrive, if you're familiar with that author. She has a host series out. I've taken her courses. I've taken some other ones that are multiple courses that teach you the proper way you should be able to advertise on each of the main platforms. And that's what I've been doing so far, short of giving somebody in another country a lot of money to send it to his 25 friends, and they say that they advertise for you. There's a lot of that out there. And a lot of, I don't want to get on a soapbox, but real quick, I've seen that more this year than I've seen in the whole time I've been writing, where you get all these people who are stealing real authors' names and pretending to be them and reaching out to young startup authors or indie authors and trying to become your friend, and then they tweak you over to some other backdoor company that wants to advertise or do your SEO work or whatever. It makes it hard to trust real good independent authors. You just have to do your due diligence to,
Right.
to find out, are you getting scammed, or are you really talking to the people you think you're talking to?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where networking is really important,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
You know?
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Build a solid network, of authors, and
right.
get to know them, and work with them.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
CW says parasites are everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's true. I think, and to CW's point, it's not just in authorship, it's in anything. Scammers are out there everywhere trying to scam you of your money, saying they're the police and all different kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah, crazy stuff. I on my book Future Conquests, I used an established artist for that cover, paid him the money back in 2022. It's all legit. And this week I get, because I've been posting a lot on my Facebook page, my covers again, kind of a little research and thing I do. I started adding some color photos to kind of reinforce the theme of the stories. And then some guy off the wall comes in and says he's meta security, and that's an illegal cover, and they're going to shut me down if I don't click his link and go talk to him. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to jump right on your link and click that thing, right? I did report him to Mega Security, but I'm like, crazy stuff.
Yeah, I didn't fall off the turnip truck.
No.
Chris Chrisman says sharing with other authors works best. Yeah, it's the greatest thing. I love it. Yeah. And Joe Congelson, one of my marketing strategies is to ask a lot of questions on the Meet the Author podcast.
Right.
There you go.
And it is good. Joe Congel is indeed an author.
An excellent author, we might
yes.
Right? You were talking about falling off the turnip truck, as you know, and it was in my bio. Out of school, I did 10 years in the Army, 6 years in Germany, but then I went into law enforcement, and I was a police officer, a sheriff's deputy 8 years, and police officer 6 years. So I had a lot of experience in dealing with people that are less than what they say they are. And some of that helps with some other series I have coming out later. And this one main character was actually an Army guy who became a cop, and I was an Army guy who became a cop. So there's some parallels there.
George Dismuke says, you can't swing a dead cat these days without hitting a scammer. They're like fleas on a junkyard dog.
That's
Joe York. Right. Joe York says, networking and building relationships has been key for me. There are wonderfully supportive authors out there that I have learned a lot from, and I learn more with every new read. That's so true, Joy. That's the absolute truth. That's the greatest thing.
Yep.
And you can always learn.
Absolutely.
That's the great thing. You can always learn something new,
Right.
So that's why we do this, so that we can all learn from each other and get to know one another, and that readers can get to know you.
Before we go to break, why don't we share where people can reach?
That's a good idea.
Del.
All right. So Del's website is sandel-writers.com, and that's SANDEL hyphen or dash WRITERS period. Okay. And then his email is dgmccoljr@outlook.com. So that's DG McCOOL Jr. at outlook.com. And that was that. Did I get everything?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, so if you go to his website, which we just had put up there, you can find everything where he is on Twitter, X, and Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, LinkedIn, all those kind of places.
Right.
You can find out his addresses to those places. Chris Chrisman says, we never stop learning. No, we don't. It's amazing how you'll hear, like, I never heard anyone say before. I mean, when we're writing a book, we kind of know how it's going to begin, how it's going to end, but we never have written our prologue and then, our epilogue first and then filled in between.
That's a new technique. Or a different technique.
And I can see where that would work.
Yeah.
If you're a pantser, I could see where that would help.
Yeah.
Plus, of course, you need to keep a running list of who your characters are, what they look like, how old they are. Otherwise, it's going to change from chapter to chapter.
Right.
Anyway, that's been my journey. What color hair did I say she had?
Yeah, we have to drop an anchor every once in a while and say, okay, where are we? Are we still on track? Okay, all right, onward. Here we go.
Exactly.
So, well, I think it's time for our second break. And when we come back, we'll talk about your other books and what you got coming up.
Yeah, there's quite a few more books, so please stay tuned.
An unforgettable mystery thriller that will transport you back to 17th century England. Introducing Dream of Courage, facing fear head-on, your passport to 17th century mystery, mayhem, and murder. Follow Robert and John Rushworth through Leeds' bustling Brigade District, where danger lurks in the shadows, embodied by the thief-taker Jacob Wilding. You will laugh, you will cry, and be in awe of the twists and turns. Its meticulous attention to character development, emotional nuance, and the unfolding of the story's layers promise a compelling and emotionally charged journey. The U.S. National Times said, "Modern writers usually don't know what it was like to live in the past, but Rushworth Brown does this with great skill." Uncover the secrets of Smythe, the enigmatic tavern keeper who sends Robert to the Haven, to the pirate Captain Girlington. Will he outwit danger in the nick of time?
It's 1919, and Eric Laska returns from the war in Europe. Two new enemies await him in the small, coal-mining town he calls home. One is a threat to his relationship with Rebecca, the love of his life. The other, a bloodthirsty beast, is stalking the mining town residents. The townspeople suspect Eric of one of the killings. An old man and Rebecca's 11-year-old sister have seen the beast, but only Eric believes their story. To protect the town and clear his name, he's forced to prove the werewolf exists. Available on Amazon. The Horror Within by Marjorie Swift Doring.
Paradise, my prison. Charlie Flint awakens from a deep sleep and finds himself alone on a tropical beach surrounded by a palm tree jungle and exotic animals. He cannot remember who he is or anything about his life. First, he must find food and build shelter and protect himself from hidden dangers. As his memory gradually returns, it reveals what a very flawed person he is. A man who made too many mistakes, made too many enemies. The implications of the truth are staggering. How did Charlie get there? And will he save himself? Paradise, My Prison is the riveting new suspense thriller from retired Hollywood scriptwriter George Dismukes. Paradise, My Prison by George Dismukes is available in jacketed hardcover, softcover, and all ebook formats worldwide.
And we're back.
We are.
Let me bring up this cover. Here's his sweet little 13-year-old Maltipoo, Wilson. And you wrote a book about senior care for your Maltipoo, right?
Yes, I did. I wrote it because our dog, like you said, he'll be 14 in May. And as he's starting to develop health issues as he's getting older, we started looking into it and we started taking some notes, and me and the wife were talking about it. So I released that under my Dale McCOOL name versus DG, but it's, if you put McCOOL, you'll find us. So you see at the top.
Alexander McCOOL.
Yeah, and that's where the Sandell comes from. See, Dell and Sandra. So, but
Mm-hmm.
anyway, but yeah, it's a great read, and it's not a giant book, but it's it's big enough, and it tells you a lot of stuff about the little dogs, and it could be useful for any dog, but it has some tweaks that are specific to the Maltipoo.
And also, he's tiny. He's only 3 pounds, right?
Yeah. If you want to see him, I'll pick him up. He's laying
like
right
teacup
here.
size.
Yeah, he's about that big. He's tiny.
He's just a ball of fluff. Well, he got groomed yesterday.
Yeah,
so he's
yeah.
so
He looks
fluffy.
more like the photo now. He's
More like
all cleaned up.
Oh, George Dismukes says, "Oh, Del, you just made a friend. I am an animal advocate."
Right?
We love our doggies. They're our family.
Yes.
They really are.
He is ours. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, for real. Yeah, because you don't have enough kids and grandkids, and neither do we. So
I think we're within one of each other, you know.
We are, of kids and grandkids,
Right.
and you have a great grandchild, and so do we. So yeah, so we need to, boost it up. All of our kids have pets. They've all got dogs and cats and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, we're definitely a pet-loving family. Yeah. And then this is a sweet little book too.
Yeah, this one here, what leads into what she was saying, where, we have like 7 children, 13 grandkids, and 1 great grandkid. And so, knowing this, me and my wife were talking, it's kind of a lost art of parents and grandparents telling bedtime stories to the small children. They kind of like the TV and the cell phone take care of that for them. And so we sit down, and this book is really structured for a parent or grandparent who hadn't really told a lot of bedtime stories, the reasons you want to do it, how you should do it. And it's got some sample chapters of famous ones. And then chapter 8, I wrote this one, and the girl's named Penelope, which happens to be the name of my great granddaughter. So, and it's just a very simple little, story, bedtime story of this little girl. And it's set in like medieval times. So.
But there aren't any Inoki.
No,
not that one.
Aliens or reptilians.
Not in that one. There are some big bad wolves and and fairies that'll turn you into a statue if you stay in the forest at night. Those things. So
well, we go camping a lot, and one of the things that our grandkids love is for us to all sit around the campfire and make up stories and tell stories. And you have to use different voices, like there's a character that he does that they all like. Mm-hmm. You going to tell him?
I'm Billy the Kid.
And every time he goes, I'm Billy the Kid. They all laugh. They think that's hysterically funny. But yeah, you have to make up stories.
I was never in Hollywood though, so.
Right. Well, not everybody has to go to Hollywood to be famous, right?
There you go.
No, we just kept having kids and grandchildren, so had our own little.
Yep.
We could be famous at home.
There you go.
So okay, there's another. I know we've got some really good ones, but I did want to bring this up because your daughters wrote this. Yes. How did you know that's what I was?
That's where I thought you were leading into.
Yeah.
And it's an ebook and a paperback. This one, real quick, the background, I explained it to them in an earlier discussion. The book's called The Ghosts of Hollow Ridge. Well, we actually lived on a street called Hollow Ridge, and we actually had a real ghost, as far as we were concerned, that lived in the home. And a lot of the activities that took place with that ghost in that home, we translated it, working with my daughters, Cassandra, Cassie, and Brandy, to put it into this story. But we moved this story back to the 1800s in Delaware in an old haunted mansion. But a lot of the ghost activities in the book are real activities we experienced in our house in Texas. And then I, working with the girls, I added a bunch of other stuff to some more fluff to it. But everybody who's read it, we've gotten really good reviews. Everyone really likes it. It's not real large. You can read it in about 2 hours, 3 hours if you're slow reading it. But it's but it kind of covers the whole gambit of where you have ghosts in a haunted house, you have secret panels in the building, you have a cavern underneath it the cultists are hiding in, and everything in between, right? So it's covers all that. It's a good little read, and I highly recommend it. And then it helps support the girls because they're both chomping at the bit for book 2 of this series. And it's the I can't even say the word, apotropodic amulet, which is a magical, in real life, that's a magical amulet that you use to push away evil spirits.
Apotropaic amulet.
You got it. Yeah. I can write it. I have to be able to say it right.
I use crystals.
Right.
We use crystals when we
Yeah.
do investigations.
And when all else
Obsidian
fails, we
and-
throw the crystal right at them.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
No,
And then, and this amulet they find in the haunted house, they actually use it later in the book. So and that's why they keep it, and it carries into the next book. The second book's outlined in New Orleans, but that's as far as I know the storyline because I'm helping them develop it. But
Ooh, New Orleans is a fun place to put a haunted mystery in. That's really fun. I mean, because it is like pretty haunted.
Get into a little bit of voodoo there,
Gettysburg.
too.
I would recommend Gettysburg too, because
the voodoo's in book 2. There's some voodoo, and there's actually some voodoo in the other book series I was telling you about earlier that we haven't talked about. So
all right. So which one are we talking about now? Is it this one?
No, this one is just a supplement to the Dark World.
Okay, so it's
it'll be the one that says Galveston on the cover.
Here we go.
That one. That one actually covers several things, but it ends up in Galveston, and there's some people who are coming from New Orleans with voodoo. They encounter some people. They encounter some people from the valley. If you remember back in the 80s and 90s in Matamoros, there was a cult down there that was killing people and eating their brains for real in real life, right?
I remember. I actually do remember that.
The sangria or something. They had a name for it, but
they were a mix of sangria and something else.
Two different, and it's actually I took the time to actually research it, and I have it all written down. I don't have it all up here right now, but a girl from the valley and a Haitian girl from New Orleans join the main guy, who is William Travelin, whose nickname is Will Travel. And his background was he's a CIA agent who worked in Latin America. And he developed meeting these two girls when he was still CIA. And when he gets out, he becomes a paranormal private investigator. And they're on his team. And the three of them, first case, he only will take the most outlandish case. And it's in Galveston, and it's got ties to the valley, ties to New Orleans in that book.
And by the way, I said sangria, which is a drink in Mexico. I meant Santeria.
Yeah, I knew it when I said it wrong. It was the wrong word. But,
I was like, nah. Oh, that's so funny. George Dismukes just said Santeria. Yeah, George.
Yeah.
And Chris Wilson says, I have crystals all over my house. Yep, me too. Yep.
So,
but
so that's part of that.
But it was Santeria and something else.
Yeah, and I don't have it in front of me.
I don't remember.
I think it started with an M. I've got it written down. Obviously, it's in my draft of my book.
But that really happened, and I mean,
it really did. And in my book, it actually starts off with that girl is in the valley, and she's actually in the cult in my book, right? And I interject a lot of the real life things. I do that even in my other series, real life events, and then from there she basically has to get out of there because they're killing off people who they think are snitching to the police about them, and she flees to Galveston. And then the girl from Haiti, who's in New Orleans, she comes to down there to the Galveston area, and then because Will already knew them from his prior life, the three of them hook up together. And,
so this is not out yet.
This one will be out later this year.
Okay, this will be out later this year.
Yeah, you see the name down below where it says the Eternal Spirit Conclave.
Yes.
That's the name
Book
of the group.
one.
Yeah, and the Eternal Spirit Conclave is actually the cult group's name that they're chasing. And
okay, and then is this book 2 in that series?
That's book 2 in that series, and and it's purely a draft right now. This one, book 1 is closer to being completed, which that's why I said I should have it by the end of this year. That one is an outline of the second one, and then there's a third one that's an outline. So right now, book 2 and 3 are outlined, kind of my prologue epilogue with a sketchy outline in between book 2 and 3, and they will tie together. And so that when you finish book 1, you think, okay, whoa, that's over, and then boom, right on into book 2. And,
so that's why you did it this way, was because you're going to go from book 1 to book 2 to book 3. So you're doing prologue, epilogue, prologue, epilogue.
Absolutely,
prologue.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Yeah, kind of like these guys shoot 3 movies at once, right? So you get the same actors. Well, I'm kind of doing that.
And they shoot it all at the same time so that they're not 10 years older.
A lot of them do that. So,
yeah,
but that's what I do. And those 2 other books, you didn't flip the one up yet, the gray one with the little little fallen angel on it.
Okay,
Dark
yeah,
side.
it's right.
It's fine.
Well, the dark side of heaven. Okay,
Yeah, that one. Yeah,
be
yeah.
prepared, folks. Here it comes.
Yeah, that is a fallen angel. And if you're familiar with the Book of Enoch, which didn't make it to the Bible, to the finished product, there's a lot of stuff in there about the fallen angels and their mating with humans that caused the Nephilim, which were giants. And as it says in the Bible, there were giants in the land those days. Well, a lot of that is outlined in. So that book is not a novel, and the black one that we popped up briefly is not a novel. They're more informational books about the topics.
Hold on just for a second. We need to say goodnight to WDJY in Atlanta, and we will see you.
Thank you, folks, for joining us, and join us again next Thursday.
Next Thursday at 9 o'clock.
That's right, 9 o'clock.
All right.
More interesting authors.
There we go.
Okay.
For the rest of you, stay tuned. We're not done yet. I will bring that up in a minute. We've got another comment. Oh, yeah. CW says, cool book cover, cool cover. The dark side of heaven. He was talking about.
At the bottom, it says, if you saw it, said fallen angels in the occult. So, and so this particular one kind of talks about the whole Enoch relationship to angels. And then it's more, like I said, a reference book, and it goes through and explains how the fallen angels are in the religious form, biblical form, how they're also used in different occult groups, and how they cross a wide spectrum of people. And that's what that book is. It and the black covered one, the supplement to the Dark World.
Okay,
they will probably
bring that one out.
Yeah, sorry.
Guardians
that
of
one.
Wisdom.
Yeah, Guardians of Wisdom. Because the Truth Dreamers, who are these characters who are the good guys against the ancient Sumerian cult, it's the soul eaters. They're called the Guardians. And if you notice, that's actually a Sumerian symbol. And then you see all your little things on there. And what this is I actually wrote a forward versus, because in these books I don't put an epilogue and a prologue. I wrote a forward in it, and it explains the whole background. If you never read any of the Dark World books, it explains what a Truth Dreamer is. And then the rest of the book is explaining how Truth Dreamers develop their magic, how they develop their fighting abilities, because these guys are like ninjas. They can cast spells, the Truth Dreamers. They can fight with ancient weapons, swords, whatever. They can fight hand to hand, and they also have the ability to do astral projection. So they can use their third eye. They can actually do several. It's a thing that grows. And in that book, it outlines that and it's also in the series, that they were piggybacked with the Freemasons when the Masons came from England to the U.S. And then they kind of hid in the shadows of the Masons as they developed and got bigger. The modern version of the Truth Dreamers. The Zidmashangi, which is also a word written on the front of this book, is the Sumerian word for the Truth Dreamers, wherever it is, that one on that side. So basically, yeah, and throughout the series, you'll find out there was an ancient version of the Truth Dreamers and then a more modern version. And during the series, they actually have a chance to meet up in the Middle East. And so it's there's quite a bit of stuff going on in these stories. And
so Joe Conja wants to know, of all the books you've written, do you have a favorite?
Well, from a purely fun perspective, Future Conquest was a lot of fun. The space sci-fi soap opera, opera one that's off to the side, space opera that's off to the side, not part of this series. It was fun only because I wrote it in 2010. Stephen and I initially wrote it as a Star Trek parody. We wrote the whole book as a Star Trek parody, and they were Star Trekkers who jumped into Star Wars world, and they jumped into Battlestar Galactica world, and they jumped into Stargate world, and we wrote it just for fun. But when we decided to clean it up, I used to play a role play game in the Army that was called Traveler, and it's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons but with space. And I had written a whole outline of a world and all this backstory called Future Conquest. So I took that Future Conquest backstory that I wrote like in 1980 and piggybacked it over the top of this parody book, and then replace everything to fit into the Future Conquest world. And that's how that book came about. So it was a lot of fun to write. Stephen and I would, we'd be writing independent of each other, and then we'd see, did our storyline merge, did it follow? And he had an idea of stories going this way. I had an idea of stories going that way. And we made it into this thing. So beyond that, the first book, Messenger Dreams, was probably the most fun because it was my first novel. I actually published it 6 months before Future Conquest was published, and it was a lot of fun because of all the background, the detail, and it's so funny because a lot of things I have in the beginning, couple chapters, are now on the news, where you have government officials saying we really did catch aliens, we really do have flying saucers, and that's all in this book when it wasn't even publicly announced. Though a lot of people understand it and know it, but that was some of that stuff in there. And then I took the deep dive into the whole thing about the clay tablets and the deciphering and translating the tablets, and then there's a whole underlying message in there, which I won't talk about. I told you guys about it earlier, but it's in the book, that people, if they read it, they'll see there's this whole thing that will make you second question today's reality outside of sci-fi books and say, are we really being manipulated by governments and religion to follow a specific path that makes it easy for them to control us? And that's kind of an underlying theme in this first book. So
yeah, and interesting, very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And and do you know, though, even though the government has said they're not ours and they're not anybody else's, and it's still been a flyby for a lot of people. A lot of people don't realize the government's actually said, yeah, they're
right.
real in here.
Right. I've seen some on some different shows on TV or on the internet also. I've seen where some very faith-based people have talked about it, and most of the ones I've seen have actually said, okay, God did create the whole universe. There's a very good chance we weren't the only ones. We're the only ones that are projected in this planet. Because if you told the people, 5,000 years ago, oh, I got other planets with people, but they don't look like you, but everybody looks like God. Well, we look like God on this planet. They look like God on that planet, hypothetically. So some people have a problem with that. And so I think that's why it's simpler just to roll it into the science fiction, bander, and anything can happen in science fiction or fantasy, right?
I think maybe we need to not take being made in the image of God too literally. I mean,
right.
Being made in the image of God is, we're supposed to love one another and help one another.
Right.
We're creative,
Yeah, not necessarily physical image, right?
Yeah, how could you be? Or how could everybody be? Then that doesn't make any sense to me. So.
Right. Unless they're all from.
What do I care if he made reptilians and grays and everything in between?
Exactly.
Doesn't bother me.
Right. Exactly.
Or my belief system, if you want to know the truth, it's
right.
I'm still good.
Yeah, exactly. And in my stories, if you become a useless human, the reptilians still have use for you, but it says as a food source. by book 3, they're using up the extra people who don't want to toe the line.
I'm glad you warned us about that, because coming up in May, we have a reptilian that's going to be on the show.
All right.
We don't.
Well, yeah.
We do.
As long as he's not live, you're okay. I mean, as long as he's not in the room with you, right? Yeah. Make sure he stock the green room.
Yeah, we'll get something other than the
people.
The champagne.
Other than people.
Yeah, other than people.
Some protein other than people.
Frozen dinners. I don't know.
Yeah. And those who have never heard anything about reptilians, look it up, Google it. Soylent Green, Chris Chrisman says.
Serve some of that in the green room.
That's what those were. I thought those were rice cakes,
Yeah.
Yeah. I just, not a fan of thinking about reptilians.
Yeah.
Nope.
So do you have any plans of possibly writing any other kind of genre, like mystery?
I mean, you've written quite a few already.
Or comedy, or
Right. Well, with this set of science fiction, we'll at some point be in a holding pattern. I'm going to focus on the paranormal, but the paranormal also has some mystery to it, but not, Scooby-Doo mystery, or it could be. Or could be, yeah. Depends how serious your Scooby-Doo is, right?
Just don't kill the dog.
Right. And so, but that's, I have considered that. And I actually wrote a draft of a book in between everything else I'm doing, and I stopped. And it was a pure because of my cop background. It was a pure whodunit in a small town. This guy was going around killing people, and he was killing them in a unique way. And I didn't ever hear this until since I wrote the draft. I actually heard something like this actually happen, where he was making ice bullets, and so he would kill the people by shooting them with an ice bullet, and it melts. So they're dead, and there's a hole, but nobody understands how. And that was just part of the plot line in my story. And so he was going around all cool because he was cold from the ice. No, he was cool because no one knew he was killing people, and who was killing people or how they were killing them. And I got a little ways in that, and I was calling it Murders Across Texas was the draft name for it. And then I just stopped, and I thought I have too many other fires going on right now, and it may be something I will circle back to, but I think I'm going to put all that kind of weird stuff into my paranormal, and who knows, you could have Jason meets Freddy type thing, you could have Will Travel runs into the Boston Strangler, it could happen.
CW says that book you were just talking about sounds like Magnolia Bluff, and it does sound like Magnolia Bluff.
Okay.
There's nothing there.
Could have happened in Magnolia Bluff for real.
Yeah. I know there was later, after I had spent time writing this up, I heard somewhere that somebody actually was using ice bullets to kill people.
We've heard of ice bullets
before.
But
I didn't really. To me, it was like, wow, there's this new idea, and it didn't.
Well, it's a very Alfred Hitchcock thing. I mean,
Sure.
That's kind of like what he would use. I remember he wrote one about a woman who had killed her husband with I want to say like a beef roast or a pork roast, and then she cooked it and ate it so that there was no weapon.
No evidence.
Yeah. I love Alfred Hitchcock. He
could be
great.
Like the fried green tomatoes and they eat the dead body, so yeah.
We're not having roast anytime soon.
You won't know about it if you are.
Apparently not.
Right? She'll know about it. You won't.
Yeah, I won't get any. Well, I kind of will, but
yeah, it'll still be frozen.
Yeah.
But the ice bullets and that kind of thing, he was always thinking of things like that.
Yeah,
where he could where the perpetrator could get rid of the weapon.
Somebody in a room that has no windows and the door's locked from the inside.
My wife hates watching anything on TV like that because within usually the first 5 minutes, I have about a 99% accuracy on figuring out where the story plot line is. And I'll tell her and she'll be like, thanks. And 99% of the time I'm actually correct. But to me, I see it, I analyze it, I just do that. Well, I did 14 years, as a cop. And so when I see things, I'm the guy who sits in the back of the restaurant with my back to the wall watching everybody. I just do that, and you could call it a lot of things, but I call it being careful,
Yeah. There you go.
My brother does that. I call it training.
Right, it is. Well, I've had people say that. Yeah, people have said, "Oh, it's PTSD," and I go, "No, I don't think so. I think it's just keeping your eyes open."
Oh no, I've told this on the podcast before. We were at my grandfather's funeral, and Rob and I were standing on one side of my grandfather's coffin, and my brother was on the other side. And Rob said to me, "Your brother's watching somebody." And so then I looked at my brother, and I could see that he was, and it was he was watching some people that were working in the cemetery, and he recognized them as gun runners. So he waited until after my grandfather was buried, and then took him down.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So he always is watching.
Yeah.
Okay. I think Joe means my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law was a corrections officer in BY, maybe NY, New York, and he does that too.
Or Brigham Young.
Brother-in-law in New York, yeah. My brother-in-law was a corrections officer in New York, and he does that too. Yeah, it's the training, Yep. It's
been a long day.
No, you mean for Joe. No, it's hard to type and get your questions up there.
Right.
And it's like when I text really crazy things, and like nut bread. I make date nut bread for Christmas every year, and we have a family thread, and we'll say, I'm bringing this and that and the other thing to family Christmas. And I always make date nut bread. And every year, the autocorrect would change it to date butt bread. And our kids and grandkids love that.
They jump right on.
Oh,
that.
they do. I don't hear the end of that.
Who wants some butt bread?
Yeah, right.
Well,
I
Chris
was gonna-
Christman says situational awareness at all times. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was going to say one thing. No one ever asks me what that is back there. I don't know if you can read it.
Delvis.
Yeah, that's actually my karaoke name. I'm also a big karaoke guy, and I do a lot of the old Elvis and a lot of the old, Ronnie Mills Sapp and Conway Twitty and a lot of that. And so I went to an event. Yeah, I went to an event, and one of my sisters had that made up, and it's got me in different Elvis costumes doing karaoke at this event in Houston years ago. So yeah, so I kept a poster after the event. That's why it's up there.
Joe Conjal says you need to add an edit button on the comments section. LML.
There you go.
Yeah, it's hard though. It's hard typing that stuff in.
It is.
Yeah, and I always say names wrong too, so I can't say anything. I can't comment.
Right. Well, I do appreciate you having me on the show today, and it's been a lot of fun for me. Hopefully, I didn't bore your audience too much with my rhetoric.
I don't think so. I think the audience has been very engaged and had a really good time. We had a good time. It's been fun.
One more question, unless you need to get going for something.
I'm wide open. I'm wide open.
What do you find is the most difficult part of the publishing process for you?
For me, it's not as hard as it was when I started. Once I have the edited manuscript back, because I self-publish, and so I use KDP, I use Drafted Digital, and I use Ingram Spark. I use 3 companies, and the only one bad thing about Ingram Spark is they charge you to upload your cover and your text, and if there's a mistake, you pay another $25 to reload it. Where the other ones you don't. And of course, in the KDP world, I normally do ebook, paperback, and hardcover. And in the Drafted Digital world, I do only ebook. And then part of that is they send it to Apple. And then I also do Google Play as a separate kind of piece to the Drafted Digital. And the nice thing about those, though, they put them in ebook, and I'm in like 150 countries around the world is an ebook. Everything I've written, because Drafted Digital sends it globally. And then if I do Ingram Spark, then it ends up in Barnes & Noble as both a paperback and a ebook. I don't use Ingram Spark for hardcovers anymore because I'm not going to exaggerate. I was making about $1 a copy on a book after I pay the costs, and you have to pay a certain fee for them to put the hardcover into the bookstores globally. So it paperback is fine. Hardcover wasn't a good cost for me. Not that I don't mind making $1 on a book. If I sell 1 million of them, that's great. But right.
Yes.
But
yes.
but KDP works well for all that. And there's some people who just don't like Amazon for whatever reason, and that's why I have the paperbacks also available. And there's bookshop.org. I don't know how many people are aware of that company. They are ones who will publish a lot of the Ingram Spark stuff, and they feed a lot of the independent bookstores across the United States. If you go you go into Bubba's bookstore and he's got 10 books on the shelf, but on his webpage it says click this link and you see millions of books. He's linking you into his bookshop.org site, where he can order, and they will get the books through Ingram Spark, and you'll get them.
CW said, very interesting. Now I have new books to explore. Joe Conjal said it was a great show. Thanks, Del, and of course, Rob and Joan.
Thank you.
Chris Chrisman says, thanks for another great show.
Is the show over with?
Well, we said it was.
I guess we did.
And Joey York says, great show, Rob and John. Marjorie Deering said, I enjoyed it as always. Thanks. Paul Hollis says, fascinating show. Thanks. You know what, guys? Thank you for being in the audience. We appreciate you. We appreciate your comments.
Yeah.
I hope Robert's doing well in his rehab. It was nice of him to stop in, say hello before he had to go.
Yes, indeed.
And
Alrighty.
love our audience, love our authors that come on as guests.
Right. Going to move you over now. Thank you so much for
right.
joining us, Del.
Thank you again for having me. Yeah.
We'll get you over there. We go to the side, and want to remind everybody next week, same place, same time, with Judith Shervin and James Schniechowski. I've always messed his name up. He's used to it. At least I got it spelled right on my paper anyway, so that's a good thing, right?
And I want to remind anyone that would like to be a part of that big blowout April 27th.
Right. Southeast Texas.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's my intl@yahoo.com, 281-229-0775 if you want to call George.
Yeah, sign up. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, that'll be Saturday, the 27th of April, from noon until 4-ish, or probably later if a lot of people show up.
Yeah, and then you can all eat.
Right.
At Pier 6 when you're done.
That's right. So, you have anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think so. I think I said it all.
All righty then. Until next time.
That's all, folks.
See y'all.
Live every Wednesday, your Voice of Indie hosts Beam Weeks and Stephen Gees welcome authors, musicians, publishing industry pros, artists, and assorted creative guests for an exciting interactive hour. Call in during the show or post questions and comments on Twitter for responses in real time. Meet your favorite indie creators, learn inside tips, network, and promote your work. The link for each week's show is pinned on Twitter atop @VoiceOfIndie. And you can receive the link every Wednesday morning in your inbox by subscribing to our newsletter at freshinkgroup.com. Check out Voice of Indie every Wednesday on Blog Talk Radio and catch hundreds of episodes archived everywhere from our websites to our YouTube channel and Spotify.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-DV.com.